Sure. Another major problem with the CSG wells themselves is the concrete casing. Concrete casing fails. Certainly in 100 years' time, 100% of the concrete casing will have failed in every single well. Some people shrug their shoulders and go, well, that's fine, I won't be around to see that in 100 years' time. But their descendants may well be.
And the breaking of that concrete casing, what kind of issues have you looked into that, what that might cause to future generations?
I have seen footage of a well in the Bentley area in northern New South Wales. And the gas is actually bubbling up, not from the capped well itself, but it's bubbling up through the water beside it. So there you go, contamination. Now, if there's any major rain events, water travels. Water doesn't recognise lines on a map, whether it's underground water or surface water, and it travels. So the contamination is going to travel. And our most precious resource, where does it leave us?
One of the things we're being told about coal seam gas is that, like an oil well drilling project, there is minimal connectivity between layers, and yet they refuse to do studies on what that connectivity is and how that gas or the water can travel from one site to another. Mm-hmm. So we know that there are links to the Great Artesian Basin, even this far over the range. So we really don't know how far that connectivity goes, regardless of their poo-pooing the environmentalists and saying, no, it's not going to affect people. We already know in Kingaroy, for instance, where they're saying we don't use BTEX chemicals in the fracking process, and yet we know that BTEX was found in surrounding properties and surrounding wells. Yeah. And that's because that BTEX was actually already under the ground. And through that connectivity, that BTEX has transferred itself through the layers into those other wells.
How did the BTEX get there?
It travelled from the wells at Kingaroy to surrounding property wells. So it actually leaked through those layers of the strata, through the connectivity that those strata have, into the other wells of the surrounding farmers.
Over what sort of time frame?
I'd have to look further into that. It was a couple of months, but certainly once they started that drilling process, and yes, it's a drilling process that's currently being stopped, which was underground coal gasification, which is slightly different to coal seam gas, but they were still fairly sure that was going to be a safe process, and they started that in Kingaroy, which is a really good alluvial soil that's used for high productivity farming, and they've been allowed basically to do a form of experimental drilling, which they've now had to stop. They're now looking at saying, oh, well, that was an error, we'll start doing the experiment somewhere else. So it's not a case of having stopped the experiment, they're actually looking at extending that experiment to other places.